Well, we're honored to be here today. So this is a celebration of not only a great man, but of the city of Lawrence, and I'm very, very grateful to the elected leaders who helped with this, beginning with Mark LaPlante and Dave Abdu and City Council, both here and those who are not here, and the mayor. It's not official until it's signed by the mayor into ordinance. So all of those people came together, and I had said to the mayor how I think impressed I was as to how the city of Lawrence over the past several years has honored veterans. You see some of these signs that are all over the city, and each person who is affixed to the sign has a history, and the city actually has on its website each and every person, so you can go on and find out why the person was honored and who that person was and what contribution he or she has given to the city. Now, in the case of Private First Class Tom Sullivan, typically those that came back from major conflicts never really talked too much about what they did over there, and whether it was the World Wars or Korea or Vietnam, the Middle East conflicts, etc. It's very difficult, other than to go into the history books to find out exactly what the conditions were and what the experiences were of these men and women. So over the course of the last several months, thanks to Veterans Affairs Directors, Veterans Affairs Melendez and Urena, I was able to get some of the discharge papers, and then to sort of scroll back from those papers to find out exactly where my father was. We learned that he was drafted in October of 42. He went into Fort Devens, which was an intake center, and then they sent him to Fort McClellan in Alabama for boot camp. And he came out of boot camp, and not knowing at the time where he was to go. And way back when the Americans got into the war, don't forget we got into the war in 1941, Churchill at that time, who was a great leader, he was begging Franklin Roosevelt to make sure that they defeated the Germans before they defeated the Japanese. And Churchill at Casablanca decided and convinced Roosevelt that they needed to retake Italy, because Italy would have been a third front war for Hitler, because a month later the Allies were going into Normandy. So what they did is, and I'm not going to bore you with this, but it was a pretty good story. Way back in 1943, they set the stage, the Allies did, to attack Sicily. But they did not want Hitler to know that. So they actually got a body, a cadaver, from a laboratory. And they put, this is the British, and they put a British uniform on this person. And they handcuffed a bunch of bogus, top secret documents to this person in a briefcase. And they threw the body overboard, and the body washed up. And the Nazis discovered the body. They broke open the suitcase with all the phony information. So the Germans were convinced that the United States would not go into Sicily, but into Sardinia and to Corsica. And they were convinced of it. And one of the masterminds of that operation was a British officer named Ian Fleming, who went on to write James Bond. So all of these connections sort of affected Tom Sullivan, because they went into Sardinia, they went into Sicily, and in just 6 weeks, the United States and the British liberated Sicily, which was a big deal for Hitler, because he didn't want to lose Italy. So all those troops left Sicily and went into Italy. My father was still in boot camp. The United States then invaded Italy after the Italians dethroned Mussolini. And my father it would take him another 8 months before he got to Italy. So he came in May of 1944. We had already been about 8 months into Italy. And as he was there for 1 month, he did not know that the Normandy invasion was ready to take place. And they lost 16 divisions, which was about 200,000 people who left Italy and went to Normandy. So the fresh boots on the ground, they were represented by people like Thomas A. Sullivan. And their orders were to liberate not only Rome, but Italy. So the conditions that they were fighting under in the Apennine Mountains, which are on his discharge papers, the Apennine Mountains are 9,900 feet above sea level. The Germans were dug in there, and it was up to all the American troops and the British troops to actually seize those strongholds. And it was 20 months of brutal fighting and over 70,000 killed just in one theater, and over 300,000 injured. And Tom Sullivan was one of them. But on May 5th, 1945, the Americans who fought a trench warfare almost every day, there was fighting every day during my father's combat tour, every single day. And they eventually liberated not only Rome, but the whole peninsula of Italy in May of 1945, 5 days before Germany, actually. So that's how brutal the fighting was. And in June, after the fighting, my father was sent to Florence, Italy. And the United States opened up the University of Florence for soldiers who were to be transitioning back to the United States. So over 7,500 soldiers in June and July and August took classes in Florence, Italy. And some of the pictures are in the back of some of the great basilicas in Florence, and where he visited, and then was discharged and came back to the United States in 1946 as a seasoned veteran. So the corner that we dedicated today, and the City Council, the mayor, and all the elected officials have been so elegant to be here today, is where he not only left to go to Fort Devens, but he played there as a kid. He was born and brought up in that house. But he saw that corner as he got in his vehicle to go to Devens. We saw the corner again when he came back in 1946 as a seasoned veteran who was wounded and tired, but never gave up. It was the same corner that he established his business in 1963, and then raised us. And we did, we took advantage of that corner several times. And this is our neighborhood. So when people said, where would it be appropriate to have the sign, it is back on his corner. And it will carry his name. And it's not only his name, but every veteran that's come and gone from the city of Lawrence to fight in a war. Our two veteran services people are Purple Heart winners, as my father was. Since my father came back in 1946, this country has lost over 100,000 veterans to war since 1946, and it still goes on. So I hope, as the mayor said, when somebody sees that sign, they have a little bit of curiosity, and they go back to the computer and they Google it, and they'll see all of the events that we're talking about now. So today, this is a celebration. It's not a memorial. The future is bright for the city of Lawrence. We've got some great leaders, both on the local and on the state scene. And this is just a fitting way of celebrating one of its own. But there's so many people in the city of Lawrence